20 marks, there's final, which will carry 25, and you have weekly labs, which carries 25% of the whole course. Now, as from this semester, attendance is mandatory. 5% is allocated for attendance. Okay. And the other 10 marks is allocated for Viva, which might take place before your midterms or before the finals. But as we can move online, it's still not sure. But like I'm just giving you a heads up that a Viva might take place. And if it doesn't, then the 10 marks will be redistributed in like somewhere else, in mid or final, etc. Okay. Do you guys have any questions about the policies, guidelines, or the whole course in general? Python, Naki, Java,
Ma'am, is it
etc.
mandatory to attend the pop quizzes?
No, it's not. For now, it's not. If it's mandatory, I have to ask the coordinator because this is my first class as well. So I haven't been able to communicate with the coordinator yet. So I'll have to ask about that and I'll let you know in next class if attending pop quiz is mandatory and if I'm allowed to provide recordings as well. Because again, as attendance is mandatory, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to provide recordings. So probably class record করা হবে না. If you guys want to record from your end, you're allowed to do that. Okay.
Miss other marks for
Anything
attendance.
else? 5 marks for attendance.
Okay, miss.
So you have to attend the live sessions. So I'll take your attendance and yeah.
Miss, how many assignments will we get? Or lab
You
assignments?
you won't be getting any assignments in the theory part. You'll be getting a total of 8 lab assignments in lab. But best 7 out of lab assignments will be counted. So lab এও হচ্ছে 5 marks for attendance and 20 marks for submitting the assignments. The 7 out of 8 will be counted.
All right, Miss. Thank you.
Okay. The course is also language independent. You guys may choose to answer your questions in Java, in Python, or any other object-oriented based language. So it's completely up to you. All right.
Miss, you mentioned we can join the 2 p.m. class. So will attendance be considered there as well?
Sure. You just tell me at the end of the class that you came from section 12. I'll give you your attendance. No problem.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Miss. Thank you.
Anything else?
Ma'am, for lab and for theory classes, are the attendance marks are different? Like
Yeah.
total 10?
Yeah, total of 10. So for attending
Okay.
lab classes, 5, and for attending theory classes, separate 5.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. আর কোনো question নেই? Anything else? Okay. So since we are already late by 1 week, I'll start with linear arrays today. The class might be a little lengthy. Then we'll move on to circular array on Wednesday, and so that you are, up to date with the lab and everything. So I'll try to cover as much as possible today, but if not, we can continue on Wednesday. All right. If you don't understand something, just unmute yourself and tell me. No problem. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So we'll start with arrays. Now, I'm guessing that most of your background is Python, but so Python does not have anything called array. So to represent arrays in Python, we use lists, but there are some specific characteristics of arrays that we have to maintain even if we, use list in Python to represent array. Okay? So the characteristics are, first of all, array is something like this, where we can store multiple values together. That is, if I want to store more than 20, 30, or 50 values. So it's not very convenient to use 20 variables, right? Or 50 variables or millions of variables, right? So that's when arrays come into the picture where we can store multiple values together. You can consider this as a building or a tower where there are multiple floors, and in each floor there are apartments where people can live. That is, an array can be considered as a tower or a building where in each place or in each floor you can keep values. All right. So that is একটা লিস্টের মতোই you can consider it, you can put index at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a 5-storied building, let's say, where you can put 5 values. So where we consider arrays, there are some characteristics that you have to follow. The first is all the values that you keep in the array has to be of the same data type. That is, if you are trying to keep integers, let's say, all of the values in the same array has to be integers. If you are trying to keep string or characters, all the values have to be of the same data type. So that is one characteristic. All right. Second thing is that the length of the array is fixed. That is, if this is an array, let's say this is the name of the array. If this array is of length 5, then we cannot just increase the length of the array. একটা array length সবসময় হচ্ছে fixed থাকে. Okay? But in Python, where you use list, there's no restrictions like that, right? That you can add or তোমরা হচ্ছে কমাতেও পারো ভ্যালু বা হচ্ছে বাড়াতেও পারো লিস্টের লেন্থ, রাইট? বাট অ্যারে যখন হচ্ছে আমরা লিস্ট দিয়ে যখন হচ্ছে আমরা করব, the length has to be fixed. So I cannot just increase the number of length. বুঝতে পারছি?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the length has to be fixed. Yeah, go on.
মানে আমি করতে পারবো না যেভাবে লিস্টে অ্যাপেন্ড করি,
কি করতে পারবে না?
মানে লিস্টে আমরা যেভাবে অ্যাপেন্ড করি ওভাবে অ্যাপেন্ড করতে পারবো না আর কি।
Yeah, no, append করতে
অ্যাপেন্ড
পারবে
করি
না।
যে লিস্টে আমরা ওইভাবে কোনো কিছু
No, করতে পারবে না। You have to manually put the values or keep the values. Okay, so no built-in functions are allowed আর কি। So you can use Python, but built-in functions are not allowed. তোমাদের যেটা করতে হবে যে manually or custom করে হচ্ছে append বানাতে হবে or insert করতে হবে। Okay, but আমরা একটা লিস্ট দিয়ে আরেকটা রিপ্রেজেন্ট করবো যেহেতু হচ্ছে এখানে, because when we use Java, so যেটা বললাম যে how do we represent it, let's say we determine the data type, that is, let's say integer, then we write third bracket, and then we write the name of the array, and then we fix the length. For list in Python, we do not have to do such thing, but we'll consider আমরা হচ্ছে যখন represent করব, আমরা ধরে নিব যে it's an integer array, and to fix the length what we'll do is, I hope you're familiar with this. Let's say if I want to create a array of length 5, I can just do this, right, in Python.
Yes, miss.
Okay, so you can do that. So first we'll fix the length of the array, and তারপর হচ্ছে we can manipulate it, or if we want to perform different operations, we can do that. Or we can just create a manual array or manual list and put the values like that. Okay, you can also do that. All right. So these are the two characteristics. There are some other characteristics as well, which are that the index always has to start from 0. Always 0. That means you cannot just keep the first value here. You always have to keep the first value in the 0 index. Okay, so the index will always start from 0. Also, you have to keep the values in consecutive places. That is, if I keep the first value at index 0, I cannot just keep the second value at index 2 or index 3 or index 4. If the index 1 is empty, then I have to keep the second value here. Okay, so values have to be in consecutive positions. So these are the characteristics of a linear array. Clear? Any questions? কোনো question আছে? বুঝছি সবাই? So if I have to repeat that array, all the values that you keep have to be of the same data type. The length will be fixed. We cannot just increase the length. The index will always start from 0 and values have to be in consecutive positions. Okay, there cannot be like এখানে value আছে, then the next value cannot be here, like এখানে হচ্ছে empty space. This is not allowed. Right?
Okay, miss.
Yes, miss.
Okay. So let's move on. So if I have an array, then we now know how to create an array. So if I have an array, then let's say if I have to iterate the array. Right? So as we know that the index will always start from 0. So if I have to iterate the array and we use a for loop, কোথা থেকে হচ্ছে start করব? Where do we start from?
M0 থেকে।
We start from 0. So let's take a variable called I. So I will start from 0. And can anybody tell me that কতটুক পর্যন্ত যাব?
Length পর্যন্ত, length of the array।
So to represent যেটার length কত, we use the length function. So go up to length. All right. And then inside the loop, we can just print the values of the array. We know this, right?
Miss, length
This is
minus
where
1 হবে না?
length minus what?
Length minus 1.
Okay, so যদি if I do this, then it's fine. If I do this, তাহলে হচ্ছে length minus 1 হবে.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
জি।
Clear, everyone? So this is forward iterating. If I want to iterate the array backwards or reverse printing করতে চাই, what do I have to do? Where do we start from?
Miss length
After 4, length minus 1.
We start from length minus 1. We go up to
0.
We go up to 0. And again, এটা হচ্ছে আমরা we can print the elements. এখানে হচ্ছে I will keep increasing and এখানে I will keep decreasing. So I hope এটা সবাই পারবো. You have to show it. নাকি পারা যাবে?
পারা যাবে।
No problem.
Okay, then যদি if we are যদি হচ্ছে আমরা iterate করতে পারি, the next thing we'll see is some small operations that will help you to do যখন complex operation করতে যাবে ওগুলাতে হচ্ছে help করবে. So the first thing that we'll see is how we can copy an array. Let's say if I have an array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if I want to copy this array, I have to create a new array basically. So আমার একটা নতুন array create করতে হবে, which will be of the same length. And if I have to code this, what I have to do is আমার b যে নতুন arrayটা, the array that we are creating will be of the same length as a. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are creating a new array which is also of length 5, and then we'll copy the values of the array A to array B. So again, start a loop. We'll start from 0. We'll go up to length and we'll copy the values of A to B. বুঝছি সবাই?
Yes, miss.
Okay. So if I understand this, I told you that arrays cannot be resized, right? That I cannot just increase the length of the array. So what if I have an array of length 5 and I want to store more values here? I cannot just do that, right? So what I have to do is I have to resize. For resizing, again, I cannot resize this array. I have to create a new array যেটার length বেশি হবে। Let's say I increase 3 places. So এটার জন্য what I can do, I can create a new array and I can just increase the length. Let's say I can increase it by 3. And then the same way I can create the same loop. Now, do I have to make any changes in the loop? Can anybody tell me? Like, will the loop go up to the length of A array or the length of B array?
Length of B array.
Does everybody agree? লুপটা কি আমি A array length পর্যন্ত চালাবো নাকি B array length পর্যন্ত চালাবো?
Beer.
Why A or
A
why B?
array. A array.
array কারণ
Because
পিতে দিলে ম্যাম ইন্ডেক্স আউট অফ রেঞ্জ চলে যাবে।
Exactly. So whenever we have two arrays, one is of smaller length and one is of larger length, we always run the loop up to the length of the smaller array. কেন? Because if I like আমি যদি B array টাকে হ্যাঁ loop যদি হচ্ছে আমি B array length পর্যন্ত চালাই, what will happen? That when I reach 4, after that it can go up to 5 because the loop is going up to the length of the B array, right? But the A array does not have any index 5. So index will be out of bound. ঠিক আছে? So this thing will be the same here as well. সবাই বুঝছি? Why we cannot run the loop up to the length of B?
বাট ম্যাম আমরা যে বি ওখানে লেন্থ 3 পর্যন্ত মানে ইনক্রিজ করে দিলাম।
লেন্থ ইনক্রিজ করেছি, বাট ভ্যালু তো আমরা এর গুলাই আনছি, রাইট? সো আমার যদি 4 পর্যন্তই আমার ভ্যালু আছে এ আরেতে, সো আমি যদি বড় করলাম জাস্ট হচ্ছে জায়গা একটু বাড়ানোর জন্য। বাট আমি যদি কপি করার সময় লেটস সে এটা এখানে 1 2 3 4 5 আসবে, এ থেকে তো আমার আর আনার কিছু নাই। এখন জাস্ট বি তে আমার জাস্ট 3টা এক্সট্রা জায়গা আছে। এখন যদি আমি যা করতে চাই আমি বি আই দিয়ে করতে পারবো, যেটা আমি এআই দিয়ে করতে পারছিলাম না, এই জন্য আমি একটা নতুন অ্যারে করে সেটাকে রিসাইজ করে বাড়ায় নিছি আর কি জায়গা, যেটা আমি এই অ্যারেতে রাখতে পারছিলাম না। দ্যাট ইজ দি হোল আইডিয়া। আমি জাস্ট এটারই কপি একটা নতুন অ্যারে বানালাম, বাট উইথ লার্জার লেন্থ। আন্ডারস্টুড?
ইয়েস ম্যাম।
ওকে, আচ্ছা। সো যদি এই দুটো বুঝে থাকি, these were pretty basic. We'll move on to how we can reverse an array. That is, so I have to reverse the array and the resultant array will look like this. That is, all values will be reversed. Tell me, what is your approach? কিভাবে করব?
are we allowed to create a new array or do we have to work on
Yeah.
the same?
Yeah, so when we create a new array, that will be an outplace approach. If we are not creating a new array, that will be an in-place approach. I'll show you both. Tell me whatever your approach is.
I think I
Yeah.
would create a new array and then like iterate
Okay.
from the last element.
Iterate
then-
from the last element of the A
Initial
array
array.
or the reverse. Okay.
Initial
And then,
array. That's it. You have to reverse, right?
yeah. So how do you copy the values in the new array?
So when I'm iterating, I will take, let's say
Mm-hmm.
for, let's do I in range,
Mm-hmm.
len a to -1 and then step -1 and
Okay,
then
so you are
for each value.
starting I from 0, right?
I'm
And you
starting
are
I from
going,
length -1.
okay. So you're starting I from length of A minus 1. That is, I is here, right?
Yeah.
And
And then I'm sort of decrementing I as we go until it's greater than or equal to 0.
how will you copy the values in the B array?
And then each
In
time I
the
would just put the value. Oh, right. I have to run another loop.
Yeah, so you have to have another variable to iterate P, right?
So maybe I have a variable j and then I increment it as I decrement I.
Good. So I have, but this is one way of doing it, that we can create a new array. Whenever we are creating a new array, to reverse the initial array, it's called an outplace approach. Okay. So in this case, we'll create a new array and we can iterate the initial array backwards or forward. Okay, দুইটাই হচ্ছে করতে পারবো. So who was this? কে বলছিল? Who was telling me
Me.
the okay, Saidul. So Saidul was saying that we can reverse we can iterate the initial array, and while we iterate, we'll put each value in the new array. কিভাবে? যে I is starting from length a minus 1, that is I is starting from 4, and j is starting from, let's say, 0. So what we are doing is, in p of j, we are putting a of I. Does this make sense, everyone? That is 50 comes here. Then we increase j and we decrease I. So then I comes here. I হচ্ছে 3 নম্বরে চলে আসবে and j হচ্ছে 1 এ আসবে. So 40 will come here, 30 will come here, 20 will come here, and 10 will come here. Does everybody understand?
মিস এটা কি while loop দিয়েও করা যায়?
হ্যাঁ, করা যাবে.
আচ্ছা হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে মিস।
I can also start from 0. In that case, j has to start from length a minus 1. You can do that as well. So in that case, you put the first value in the last index of P. So this can be done as well. Okay? Questions, anyone?
Not
Clear or not?
directly related to this, but I have a question in general with Python. Like when we're using the range function, we have to use this, like it feels a little bit like a hack to me that we have to use len a minus 1 and then -1 and then step -1. Is there a similar range function for the other way around when we're trying to decrement?
Not really. So I think in Python, when we are using Python in data structures, we do not usually allow you to use any built-in functions, right? But I don't think there's any other what you can do is to calculate the length. You have to iterate from the first element to the last element and keep a variable. And each time you get an index to increase the value of, let's say, a variable for count, right? So you iterate the array, and each time you get an element, you keep incrementing the value of count, and like that you can get the length of the array. Right? You cannot then তখন হচ্ছে তুমি length এটা use না করলেও হবে আর কি. But length হচ্ছে use করা যাতে, you can also use range in this course. But other built-in functions we do not usually allow. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it clear, everyone, how you can reverse by creating a new array?
Yes, Miss.
Okay. Please tell me if you don't understand, okay? Acha. So there's another approach where we cannot create a new array, which is called an in-place approach. That is, we have to manipulate the initial array and reverse it. That is, the initial array that we have is like this, right? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So can anyone tell me how we can do that? We cannot create a new array in this case. This is the initial array and we have to reverse it.
Miss, rotate left.
Yeah, that is one way. What else? Any other methods? You can rotate left, but it becomes a bit complex. There is an easier way to do it, which is, what if you start an iterator from here and another iterator from here, and you just swap the values? Make sense? That is, I starts from 0, j starts from the last index, and you just swap the values. That is, 50 comes here, 10 comes here, and then you increment I, decrement j, you again swap values, and when I becomes less than j, you stop the loop. So reverse হয়ে গেছে, right? 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. I was thinking of another way. Why can't we like iterate up to the mid term, like the term which is in the middle? Oh, how about for even numbers? Okay, I think it will work for even numbers as well.
It will work for even numbers as well. That
I'm not too
is
sure.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, let's say. Okay? So at first I is here, j is here, right? And 50 comes, sorry, 60 comes here, 10 comes here, I here, j here. So then 50 comes here and 20 goes here, I comes here and j goes here. So 40 comes here and 30 goes here. So at this point, j will come here and I will come here, right? So j is now 2, I is now 3. এরপর তো আমরা করবো না, right? So this also works for even length. Understood? Questions, guys? এটা কি confusing or বুঝছি?
Miss, can you explain the swap method again?
Yeah, sure. What we are doing is আমরা just values এর place change করে দিচ্ছি. So it's the same array, but we're keeping two different iterators. One is I, and we are starting the other one from the last index. So 50 comes here, 10 goes here. Okay? Then we increment I and we decrement j. Now, I এর মধ্যে যেটা আছে, that will go in j, and this will come in I number index. And then I comes here and j comes here. But now 30 is being swapped with 30 আর কি.
Okay, Miss, বুঝতে পেরেছি।
Okay? But if I write this, তাহলে হচ্ছে even if it's for odd number of length, তখন হচ্ছে এই কাজটা আর করতে হয় না. It works for even number of length as well. Okay? Do I have to show you, let's say, what I'm doing is basically I is starting from 0, j is starting from length of A minus 1. Alright? While I is less than j, inside the loop we are swapping. Now what happens is, we cannot just do this, right? That A of j, we are keeping A of I in A of j. What will happen in this case? Let's say 10 is here and 60 is here, right? So if I write this line, what will happen? 10 will just come here and we'll lose 60, right? Gucci.
Yes, miss.
Okay, so for swapping, we have to keep a temporary variable to store any of the values. We can store the value in index I or we can store the value in index j. So what we'll do is, we'll keep a temporary variable. যেটার মধ্যে, let's say I'm storing in A of I. Let's say 10. So temp এ হচ্ছে এখন, let's say 10 আছে. Then in A of I, I'm keeping A of j. So 60 comes here first. Alright? Then in A of j, that is in the last index, we keep temp. We store 10 in temp, so এখানে এখন 10 চলে যাচ্ছে. Okay? This is how we can swap. And then I is incremented by 1 and j minus 1. This is how we can reverse, where we do not have to create a new array. Alright?
Yes, miss.
Everybody clear?
Yes,
Questions? Anyone? Okay. So the last two things that we'll see today that will be important for when we do insertion or removal is shifting. So have any of you done Cse220?
Yes, miss.
So did you guys do anything regarding bit shifting where you have to shift beats? I don't think so. I haven't seen in labs though.
No, miss.
Okay, so there are, like, let's say I have a binary value, right? So in this value, if we left shift or right shift, so there are many reasons where we have to shift beats, right? So when we shift beats, when we left shift, the leftmost beat gets lost. If we right shift, the rightmost value gets lost. That is, if I implement this in an array, if I left shift, that is, I'm just shifting all the elements towards the left. That means 20 comes here, 30 comes here, 40 comes here, 50 comes here, and 10 gets lost. Gucci? This is left shift. But when we right shift, 40 comes here, 30 comes here, 20 comes here, 10 comes here, and 50 gets lost. That is, we are shifting the values by one place towards the left or towards the right. That is basically shifting. Okay? Do you understand the concept? And then we'll move on to implementation.
Understood, miss.
Okay. So that is, if these are the index, when we are left shifting, this is basically what we are doing, right? That we are bringing the value of index 1 into index 0. That is 20 is coming here. 20 is coming into 0 index. And then and so on. What you see? So basically this, right? that if for value is n, when we are left shifting, this পরের ভ্যালুটাকে আমরা তার আগেরটাতে বসাই দিচ্ছি, right?
Yes,
Right.
miss.
Okay. So what happens is the resultant array looks something like this. That 10 gets lost, 20 comes here in the 0th index, then 30, then 40, and then 50. Now যে last জায়গাটা বাকি থাকে, what we do is we keep a 0 here because all the values are shifted towards the left. So what we do is we are starting the loop from 0. We are going up to where? এটা বলো এখন কতটুকু পর্যন্ত লুপ চালাবো? Anyone?
Length.
Sure.
Yes.
লেন্থ থেকে এক কম, লেন্থ অফ এ -1।
এটা নাকি I less than equal to এটা?
ম্যাম লেন্থ অফ এ দিলে তো ইন্ডেক্সের বেশি চলে যাবে না ম্যাম?
Think about it. একটু আজান দিচ্ছি তো, let's take a 5-minute break. 5 মিনিট ব্রেক নেই, ঠিক আছে? হাতেমটা শেষ। Yeah, anyone? Less than length a -1 or less than equal to length a -1? Or less than length?
Equal. Less than or equal length -1.
This one?
Means the second one.
Second one? Sure. Anyone else?
Yes. Because
The
length
reason,
is 5 and index is 4.
yeah, so the reason it won't work is, see when length becomes 4 and we try to copy the value of 4 plus 1. So we do not have a of 5, right? In this array. So it will show an error of index out of bound. Okay. So this should be correct. Does everybody understand? যখন হচ্ছে আমরা শিফট করব So when A becomes 4, that is length A minus 1. Length is 5, length A minus 1 is 4. So when I becomes 4, we will try to copy A of I plus 1 into A of I, right? But A of 5 does not exist. Okay, that's why it won't work. Gucci? So this should be correct.
I mean, the first one should be correct, yes.
Yeah. Does everybody understand why it's not I less than equal to length A minus 1?
Yes, miss.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So after that, we go up to I less than equal to I length A minus 1. And inside the loop, we'll just copy the values. All right. So after we come out of the loop, what will happen? We'll get this, right? 20, 30, 40, 50 will come here. But the last 50 will remain here. So what did I say? When we left shift, the last value should be empty or the last value should be 0. But as we cannot do that automatically inside the loop, when we come out of the loop, we manually put 0 here. All right. So for that, after we come out of the loop, what we have to do is A of length A minus 1 will be equal to 0. Is everybody clear? This is how we can left shift by 1 place. বুঝছি সবাই? কোনো questions? Okay. Now, what if the question asks us to left shift by 2 places or 3 places or k places? What changes do we have to make? That is, if I shift this array, if I left shift this array by 2 places, the resultant array will look like 30, 40, 50, 0, 0. Okay. So what changes do I have to make? Anyone?
We can repeat this, we can run an outer loop repeating
Yeah,
this
that's
process.
the easiest way to do it.
Yeah,
So
we can do
just
it another way, but I'm
yeah,
not
we
too
can do
sure.
it another. Yeah, we can do it another way. There's a specific formula for that. You can find that out yourself. But the easiest way to do this would be, you know how to left shift by 1 place. So even if they ask you to do shift by 2 places or 3 places, you can just run an outer loop, which will repeat this whole process by 2 or 3 or whatever number they tell us to shift. Okay. So just an outer loop will do. And you run it up to k. Clear, everyone? You just repeat the same process twice or thrice. Questions? Is everybody clear or confused or বুঝছি সবাই? I'm not sure. Okay. So this was left shifting. When we right shift, I won't show you this. This is তোমরা নিজেরা করবা, but if you are stuck, just let me know, then I'll help you. I'll just give you a hint where we'll get stuck. That is when we right shift, this is what happens, right? পরেরটাতে চলে যায়. But if you start from 0, what will happen is, if 10 is copied here, and then again you copy here, then 10 will be here, here, and here. Do you understand the problem if I start from 0?
Yes, miss.
Okay. So this is a challenge that you think about it and try to do this by yourself, how you can solve this. If you get stuck, just let me know. Then I'll help you. But you understand the problem, right? That if I start right shifting from 0, 10 will be copied in every index, right?
Yes, miss.
Yes, ma'am.
So try to solve this on your own, but if you get stuck, then let me know. So this was shifting. Related to this is the last thing, which is rotation. That is when we were trying to shift, we were losing values, right? But if we rotate, let's say if I left rotate by one place, that is 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. If I left rotate, I first shift, and shift করলে যেটা হতো যে the last value would become 0, right? But if I rotate, what will happen is the first value which we were losing will come here. That's basically it. And if I right rotate, ten, 20, 30, 40, 50 would just come here. So what changes do I have to make in this code for rotation? For left rotation, let's say. Everything will be the same, just 10 has to be here. Previously, we were putting 0 manually. Now, if I just keep the first value in a temporary variable, and after this loop ends, we just keep set the temporary variables in the last index. That's it, right? You guys understand?
Yes, miss.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So another challenge that we'll face is when we left rotate or right rotate by 2 places or more than 1 place circuit. So in those cases, what will happen is, let's say 2 places hole, I have to bring 10 and 20 here. Try to do this on your own as well. Try to do this on your own as well. Okay? But you understand the concept of rotation, right? Instead of 0, we rotate the values and bring it in the back. In case of right rotation, we bring it in the front. Questions, anyone? Okay. So in today's lecture, we looked at linear arrays. We saw how we can create an array, iterate an array, how we can copy an array, resize an array, then how we could reverse an array, both out place and in place. We saw left shifting. We saw left rotation. Your work is to try right shifting and right rotation. And if you get stuck, just let me know. Okay? That's all we'll see for today. Next class, we'll see insertion and removal, and we'll move on to circular arrays. All right? So any questions from today's lecture? Anything at all?
ম্যাম পাইথনে যখন লিস্ট ইউজ করব তখন কি অ্যারের এই রুলস গুলো মানে মাথায় রাখতে হবে?
এক্স্যাক্টলি। সো আমরা লিস্ট ইউজ করব, বাট আমরা মাথায় রাখবো যে আমরা লেন্থ হচ্ছে ফিক্স রেখে করব। ওই যে মেনশন যে করে দিলাম যে ইনিশিয়ালাইজই যখন করব তখনই হচ্ছে 5 লেন্থ এভাবে ধরে নিব আর কি, বা যখন হচ্ছে কপিও করব তখন হচ্ছে এরকম লেন্থটা ফিক্স করে দিব আর কি। ঠিক আছে, এটা হচ্ছে এক। আমরা সেম ডেটা টাইপ রাখবো। স্টার্ট হচ্ছে আমরা 0 থেকে করব, আর কনজিকিউটিভ পজিশনে হচ্ছে ভ্যালুস রাখবো। ওকে,
ওকে ম্যাম।
এই জিনিসটা ফলো করলেই আর কোনো সমস্যা হবে না। আর বাকিটা হচ্ছে পুরাটাই হচ্ছে লিস্ট, ওভাবে লিস্টের মতোই কাজ করতে পারো। বাকি সবকিছুই হচ্ছে সেম পাবে আর কি। যে সেই লেন্থের ব্যাপারটা হচ্ছে তোমার লিস্টে একটু ডিফারেন্ট হয়, যে লিস্টে তো তোমার লেন্থ ফিক্স থাকে না, আমরা যত চাইয়ে প্রিন্ট করতে পারি। বাট এতে যেহেতু লেন্থ ফিক্স থাকে, ওই জন্য আমরা লিস্টে হচ্ছে ওভাবে ধরে নেব। ওকে?
ওকে ম্যাম।
Yes. Can we write our own append function and use it
Yeah, of
for
course.
assignments?
Yeah. That's the way to do it. নিজের append function or নিজের insert function লিখতে হবে আর কি। So I forgot to show you one thing. I'll just quickly show it. You need it when you move on to circular arrays. linear arrays এ অত লাগবে না. So that is the difference between capacity and size. So this is not something inbuilt. This is just an idea, and this is just a variable to keep a track. That is, when you'll see this a lot, the difference between size and capacity. So when we talk about capacity or length, we basically mean the amount of values that we can keep in an array. Okay, that is, if the length of an array is 5, that means that we can keep 5 elements or 5 values, right? That basically means that's the capacity or that's the length of an array. When we talk about size, let's say this is an array of length 5. So there are 3 values, and these 2 places are empty. There are no values, let's say. So the length or the capacity of this array will be 5, but the size of this array will be 3. Why? The size means the amount of values that are already there in the array. Do you guys understand the difference?
Yes, miss.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Capacity means the amount of values that we can keep, and size means the amount of values that are already there in the array. So let's say when we are trying to copy an array, if the original array looks like this, that means these are empty. 0 means empty spaces. And the question asks you to copy the array in a way that there are no empty spaces. What are the changes that you have to make here? Do you understand the question? You have to copy the array in a way that there are no empty spaces. What are the changes that you have to make? No? বুঝতেছো না? A is an array, right? There are 5, the capacity is 5, and there are 3 elements and 2 places are empty. So you have to copy the array in a way that there are no empty spaces in the new array. That is when you're creating B, this should be the length of the array B. বুঝছো এখন?
Yes, miss.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you guys sure, বুঝছি?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then when we are copying, just হচ্ছে first 3টা values copy করলেই হবে. As these are empty, there is nothing to copy. And loopটাও যখন চালাবো, when we run the loop, we will start from 0 and we'll go up to size. All right. Hope it's clear.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, then that will be all for today. I'll just quickly take the attendance if you do not have any more questions. All right. ঠিক আছে, I'll call your name. Just respond. Raisul Islam Opu. Khaled Mohammed. Firdaus. Abdul Munaf Rapsan. Who said yes? Abdul is here, right? Oh. Saida Sabiha.
Present, miss.
Saima Islam.
Present, ma'am.
Munia Alum.
Present, ma'am.
Kandakar Wasif. Aydin bin Ibrahim.
Present, ma'am.
Rakib Hassan. Sarful Mullah. Mehdi Hassan.
Yes, ma'am.
Rakibul Hassan.
Yes, ma'am.
Tajrian Arafat,
Yes, ma'am.
Orghopatim,
Present, ma'am.
Rubaiya Islam,
Present, Miss.
Asif Iqbal,
Present, miss.
Totona. Did I pronounce that right?
ম্যাম এতক্ষণ ছিল এইমাত্র লেফট নিচে
আচ্ছা